Hello and welcome, everyone. Please feel free to say hello in the chat. Let us know where you're from. I got a little feedback somewhere.
Sorry, it was me. Sorry.
That's okay.
Fixed it.
Hey, Blossom, how are you, my friend? How are you feeling? I just saw recently that you were not feeling well again. I was on vacation. I missed a lot. Hello, Trish. Hi, Frankie. First time here from Maine. I love Maine. I was in Maine in May, right around Memorial Day. I was in Saco. I love that place. Hey, Bex, how are you? So nice to see you here. And like I said, feel free to say hello. Let us know where you're from, if this is your first time here, or if you're an old timer here. I recognize a lot of you already. And by old timer, I don't mean age, obviously. Hi, Robert. Hello from Florida. Oh, the asthma and the cold weather. And we're over here sweltering in the heat on the East Coast. It's so strange to me how we have completely opposite weather. Hi, Trish from Washington State. Hello, Corinne. So, welcome everyone. Tonight, our topic is going to be boundaries, which is one of my favorite topics because I am one of those people who has a hard time not setting boundaries because I mean, I have my boundaries that I kind of live by, but I have a hard time telling other people when they've stepped on mine. So in the past, my method has been to kind of, I guess, passively aggressively try to convey the message. And if that didn't work, I ghosted them. And as I've grown up, I'm trying to get past that. I'm working on that one. I've gotten better, but it's still a work in progress. So I'm excited to have this panel here because I know that everyone here and everyone in the chat is going to have some great tips for us that we can come away with and we can figure out how to lovingly set boundaries because I, for one, never want to hurt anybody's feelings. So I try my best to do things in a nice, loving way. I think my problem is that the nice part of me has a hard time being firm. And I think that's where some of us need to work on setting boundaries. So before we get started, I'm going to have our four other teachers that I'm here with. I'm going to have them introduce themselves. Catherine, I will start with you.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. I'm the self-love advocate on Insight Timer. I have the self-love course and self-love tracks. And also I like to put people to sleep. And I'm very happy to be here. I cover the topic of boundaries in my course. So hopefully I can be of service today.
Well, I wish I could put up your course card. I should have thought to prepare that ahead of time, and I did not. But just so that everyone knows, when this live is over, I always include links to all the teachers. You can find that through the link in my teacher's profile, any replays, any links. So I will make sure to include a link to that course as well.
Yeah.
Obviously, you can find our teachers here. I'm letting one more teacher in. No one reprimands her for being late, okay? And Anne, I'm going to let you introduce yourself.
Oh, thank you for having me here again, Violet. Always good to be here. Well, I'm a meditation teacher, obviously, and I take classes mainly with older people, the face to face. When I say older, above 60, and always impressed with how you can be new to meditation at any age and still develop a really healthy and helpful practice. And on Insight Timer, I take sessions with a variety of different topics, but also just do general meditation, and I put people to sleep too. I tend to do that a bit. So thank you very much for having me.
Thank you for being with us. And when you say older and you mentioned 60, now that I've
I know
recently
I'm,
turned, no, no, now that I've recently turned 60, I find that very young. So I just wanted to throw that out there.
yeah, I'm next year.
Wow. Yeah, it's like the closer you get to those ages, the younger everyone starts looking. I remember when I was, 30, I thought 60 was old. Now I'm like
Uh,
90.
no, no, it's just older than
Oh, I
zero.
No, I get it. I totally get it. And it's like the first year that I've not been afraid to admit my age. So I'm totally cool with, I feel like
Yeah,
at this age, my experience and what I've learned and everything, I'm good with where I am right now.
I'm looking forward to it.
Vivian, please introduce yourself.
Hello, thank you for having me. Bex actually brought me into the space, so just a little shout out to Bex, who is in so many of our community spaces. I'm 54, so yeah, 60 is young, 70 is pretty young, 40 babies.
Right?
Yeah, it's relative, isn't it? I'm based in Cincinnati. I'm an energy coach. In my meditation sessions, a lot of people fall asleep. And I find when that happens, it's because something in the body needed the rest. So I take it as a compliment. It's like you feel safe enough that you can just completely tune your body off, which is great. Yeah, I'm not sure what else to say. I'm glad I'm
No,
here. I'm looking forward to talking about boundaries. And yeah, thank you.
thank you. All right. And Marcella, please introduce yourself. And if I say anybody's name wrong, please correct me because I love to get names right. And you're muted. You're muted. We can't hear you. I'll switch over to James while you mess with your mic. James, could you introduce yourself?
Absolutely. I'm likewise thrilled to be here. I just as a point of information, I just 2 weeks ago turned 75. So you're all babies
I love it.
as far as I'm. And
Yeah.
what I found over this period of time is that as we should have treated our lives, our entire lives, um, every day is precious, and you live your life according to that premise. My work has on the platform has been largely dedicated to providing music that is supportive of, in large part, sleep deprived, but in addition, in support of those who have um, specific holistic practices that my work does well with. And I've been on the platform since the beginning, and delighted to be here, and delighted that the platform is still strong and viable, and that we have a global audience that is not only responsive but willing and wanting to be interactive with us as creators. That's all
That's
I got.
awesome. Thank you. That's awesome. Marcella.
Hi, can you hear me now?
I can.
Okay, great. Well, hi, everybody. Speaking of boundaries, I'm the one who arrives late. Thank you all. I'm a work in progress. Yeah, thanks for inviting me, Violet. It's great. It's great to be here. I am relatively new to Insight Timer. I'm less than a year old, and I am the founder of the Women Food and Forgiveness Academy, and it's an online program to help women heal the emotional roots of yo-yo dieting, binge eating, sugar addiction, body shaming. And I use the tool of EFT tapping. Some of you, yeah, I see a couple heads nodding. Some of you might be familiar with that. And I've got a few tracks up on Insight Timer. I'm working on, increasing my library. The thing that I've been doing a lot here is live events every week. And I love, 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 love the live events. And I see, I see a couple of people from my lives in the group here. So it's just nice to be in the community. Yeah, thanks. Thanks so much.
Thank you. All right. I was just about to say hello to everyone who joined after we started talking. I saw a few more people pop up in the chat. And one of the questions that I had put into the chat when we first started was, what do healthy boundaries mean to you? Feel free to put it in the chat. We're also going to pose this question to each other. If anyone on the panel wants to tackle what the concept of healthy boundaries means to you, feel free to jump right in. I was saying that for me, I've been trying to work on a healthy way of conveying boundaries without, just ignoring people or shutting them out, which is what I used to do in the past. I would kind of passively aggressive let them know that they had pushed my boundaries, and I have a hard time finding not a nice way, not that I'm being mean, but I have a hard time just verbalizing it. I don't know how to say to someone that they've pushed my boundary without me feeling bad, like I'm going to hurt their feelings. So, does anybody have any tips on that one or want to say anything about boundaries in general? Mary Pat says, what is okay and what is not okay? Boundaries for me with kindness and clarity. Yeah, absolutely.
And heart. So you feel, let me get this right, Violet. You feel guilty when you set a boundary? Is that it? You think you're hurting their feelings?
Yeah, I'm always so concerned that I'm going to hurt someone's feelings that I have a hard time letting them know just straight out, that they've crossed a boundary. But then maybe it gets to the point where now they've really annoyed me and I just stop talking to them altogether, which, is not the solution either.
Because maybe were you scared that if you said something, they would stop talking to you? So you,
No, I think I'm more afraid of hurting other people's feelings.
right. Well, I've set boundaries as nicely as I possibly could. And I've had my sister hang up on me and never ever hear from her again. And it was a very simple ask. I just asked if we could not discuss finances and just stay off that topic and talk about everything else. And, we had so many things to laugh about and enjoy. And I haven't heard from her in like 6 years
Wow.
because I set
Yeah.
a nice boundary and I thought she'd accept it, but you just never know how people are going to react.
Yeah, that's another good point too. I feel sometimes when you set a boundary, people become confrontational. James, did you have something you wanted to add?
Um, yeah, for me, over time, this whole topic is about managing your space time, really, and how much space do you need, and what amount of time do you need to be able to react to your needs? And I kind of come down to the 4 C's for me. One is clarity. Are you clear to yourself about what your boundaries are? Number two is consistency. Can you do that on a regular basis and not just whimsically? Number three is communication. Are you expressing that directly to another? And number four is, what are the consequences? Is there a clear response for you and for anyone else involved in a communication? What happens if that boundary is crossed? And that's the challenge. But for me, that's ended up being a pretty good guideline as to whether or not I'm being present in a moment where that kind of issue becomes present and immediate. So that's kind of been my guideline.
Now, does anybody else want to weigh in on that?
Yeah, I love that. I think that's such a clear, way to look at it. I think what I would add, for me, it begins with the communication. And often people don't really know how to communicate because there's so much stirring emotionally if there's a boundary that needs to be created. One of the tools that I always suggest is to check in with your body and then to use your body as a communication tool, meaning in this moment, my stomach is churning or my heart is beating really fast or I feel words stuck in my throat, and what that means to me. And, communicate from your body, because I find when we're speaking about our body, we can't be argued with. Like someone can't tell you, no, that's not what you're feeling in your body. It's your body and you know what's going on. And sometimes that just brings the communication to a different level. It's like we're not in the head arguing about something, we're actually in our body. The toughest one, I think, is the heart. You know, when you have to say like, oh, like that hurts my heart. My heart wants to protect and close, and I can feel the wound in that. That's the most vulnerable way, I think, to communicate. But if you can't get to that, anywhere in the body, I think is a good starting point. But yeah, it's everything you said, I think, James. You've got to stick with it. You've got to have the consequences, and consistency is hard. It can be really challenging.
The other thing I find challenging is dealing with people like Catherine said, who are not mature enough to, you told your sister about your boundary and she hung up on you. I've had that happen to me too with family. And like, how do you deal with people like that who lack that maturity to accept what you're telling? I mean, it's great to be clear and have these boundaries, but I guess my struggle is, how do you deal with people like that? Because I have a lot of family members like that.
Yeah, family is tough. It's a tough one, the family, for sure. But it is a self-love, a self-love exercise to be aware of your boundaries and to communicate your needs, like James said, with clarity. But it's tricky. You have to be prepared for some sort of someone taking it personally or taking it the wrong way. And I just kept trying and trying to keep communicating, but she's still ghosting me. But I mean, it's a risk. I wish now I hadn't done it, tell you the truth. And it made me more shy going forward with people. But like, for example, simple things like a friend is always asking you for favors constantly, and you just keep people pleasing, going to the airport at midnight and all these things. And you really are messing with your schedule, and your energy is depleted. And it's like everybody is asking, and you're a giver, and you give and give and give, and you're a people pleaser. And then you just crash and you're exhausted, and something's got to give. And I think it's a matter of setting, those are important time for boundaries and letting people know, I really can't do it this time. And it's the people will surprise you. They'll find someone else to go to the airport, and most people won't take it personally, and they will still be your friend, and they'll just find another way. And I just think it's a matter of experimenting and keep trying and just speaking your truth. And I think it's one of the 4 agreements, isn't it? To be impeccable with your word.
Yes.
Right.
Right. I just want to scroll through the chat here, what I was seeing.
So it's an act of self-love for sure.
It's definitely an act of self-love. Frankie writes, when someone pushes boundaries, it's hard to know what to say until after the fact, until we played over and over. Yeah, that's so true too. I have a tendency to do that. I will replay how I handled something, how I could have done better. It's like, why didn't I think of that at the time? And then, after the fact, I can't go back.
Yeah.
Robert, I love what you wrote there. I'm not comfortable with that. I actually read an article about, sorry, my dog is squeaking a toy. I actually read an article about 7 phrases that you could use, and that was one of them. I'm not comfortable with that. And I need to remember that, to use that one. Zia writes, it's an inside job for me, being able to feel safe enough to say no. That's true too. If you feel safe enough with this person to say no, I sometimes avoid saying no. I would just make an excuse, and I'd rather not make an excuse. I'd rather be honest and just say no. Gloria writes, feeling totally confident with decisions, trusting myself, loving me, definitely loving you. And Annie, we can't live our lives to please people. So true. Something I've learned as I've gotten older. Joanne writes, as I have gotten older, boundaries very rarely needed to be set, but I do set them when needed for my own self-care. Mary Pat writes, I've been told that boundaries require you to be mean. I don't believe it, but I've heard it from a few. And see, that's my thing. I do not want to be mean. And I don't think that you have to be mean. I think you can be firm and still be loving. And Zia writes, the opposite, where you can see a person wants to make a boundary, but instead of using their words, they do something to shame you. instead or are abusive. Yeah. Robert says, I have a friend and she has a hard time telling people that she has her own life and you can't keep calling late at night. Yeah, and see something like that, I just put my phone on mute. Like it'd be easier if we could just say to people, hey, don't call. I mean, I have said, don't call me late at night or things like that, but some people just do it anyway. Bex writes, maybe set a boundary for the self. I won't tolerate this behavior from others. If you behave that way, I won't interact with them. Yeah, I agree with you, Bex, but I have a hard time saying things like that to people. Like, how did the rest of you here on the panel, like, how do you handle those conversations?
Can I speak to this? I think I might,
Please.
I'm starting to put my thoughts together here. So what I find in my own experience and also in the work that I do with, women who struggle with emotional eating and all the fallout of that is that if there was abuse in early life, there wasn't, let's say the abuse happened, ages 0 to 6. A child who goes through that kind of experience can't set a boundary with it, can't say no, can't use their voice. With the women that I have worked with, in fact, I just gave a live event this morning about using your body to say no. When your voice doesn't, you can't say no, the body does it for you. So that inability to speak up and say no can get lodged in the system, right? The nervous system. And then here comes adulthood. And, what I heard in what you were saying, Violet, was like, I feel guilty setting this boundary. Yeah. And I think that's something, I don't know, James, I don't know if this resonates with you, but I think it's something that we do as women generally. We're supposed to be nice,
Mhm.
and somebody could be getting ready to smack you in the face and you still don't want to like scream because you don't want to look bad or something. So one of the things that I say to my clients a lot is every creature in nature has a way to set boundaries. Porcupines have quills. Skunks have odors that they emit. Cats have claws.
Oh,
Even amoebas have some kind of like liquid that they ooze if they don't want. So it's actually a part of nature to not to filter what comes in and what you keep out. And I think that when it's one thing to understand that conceptually, but then when you make peace in your nervous system with that reality and you're congruent with it, the setting of the boundary just becomes natural. Like you have the right to set whatever boundaries you need to set for your own well-being. It's just a part of being a human being. So the other thing I was just writing down here was go deeper than the drama. you know oh, this person said this and I said that and I feel this way and I do that, and that just kind of keeps you spinning versus going deeper. What is the nature of my fear, and how old is this part of me that feels this way, and how can I support and send love to that little one and have that feel safe? And then we tell people how they should feel about it. We signal to people through our words, through our tone of voice, through our body language, how they should feel. So if you're feeling really conflicted, right, that other person is going to mirror that back to you. So I think it is an inside job to begin with. And then just the last thing I just jotted down here, no is a complete sentence. No
Yeah.
is a complete, no thank you is an even more complete sentence, but you know, you might not owe as much explanation or context as maybe that guilty part of you might believe. And I'm not just talking to you specifically, I'm talking to myself, I'm talking to the universe, everything. So
I,
yeah.
I think I think that's a great insight. Absolutely.
Yeah. There's a a meme going around, which is kind of funny but true, in that and it's supposed to be an the title is, why don't older people get jobs? And it's an interview between an HR manager and an elder. And the HR manager says, you know, the inevitable question, what is your greatest weakness? And the old man says, I believe that it's honesty. And the HR manager says, I don't think that honesty is a bad thing. And the old man says, I really don't give a damn what you think. And you know, it kind of makes me wonder sometimes whether this whole ability to establish and consistently administer boundaries today is within the province of the elders. It's so much more difficult when we're younger. I can still remember how difficult it was, and you know, I think a couple of things have stuck with me for, well, let's see, probably about 50 years right now as some of the most memorable, meaningful experiences of my life. One of them was um, when I was maybe 30, I was asked by my boss at Gibson Guitars to go to Japan and Taiwan and do a factory tour of all the factories we had, which were making our Epiphone brand of guitars. And I said, God, that's great. What an honor. So we took off and we went and we visited Japan. And then we went on to Taiwan and visited a couple of factories there. And they invited us out to a dinner. And so we're having dinner. It was a great dinner. And they said, please join us for dinner at a cabaret. I said, wow. And all I was thinking was, I saw the movie. I think it's great. I want to go see a cabaret. And that's not exactly what it was. So we had a nice dinner. And then we said, let's adjourn for dessert to another small private room, which we did. And we enter the room, and there's this table there that fit, I think it was 12 people. Each of us had a name card on the table, and they said, please sit with your name card. And then about a minute later, in parades this bevy of, I don't know, 6 or more beautiful women. And they sat between us. And in the middle of the table came a bottle of Jack Daniels, big bottle. And we had shot glasses, and we're all the women were trying to communicate with each of us. We were having shots. And if nothing was happening in someone's opinion from that, they would rotate to the next available seat. And I looked at my boss and I said, look, I know where this is going. Call me a cab. I want to go back to the hotel. I'm done. You're welcome to stay. I'm done. And I probably could have been fired for that, but I wasn't. So that's one where I said, you know, these are my boundaries. This extends way, way, way beyond my boundaries. And everything was cool. On another occasion, which is probably one of my top memories in my life, I was still performing live then with a band, and we were hired to do a graduation ceremony of Down syndrome children. And children is a generous word because the audience there of graduates was between 18 and 60. And we set up, we were ready to play, and somebody came around and said, we're putting up this cordon in front of you. And I said, why? And she said, because they will flood you, because music is so attractive and powerful to them, and it will interfere with what you're doing. And I said, no. If you want us to go home, we'll go home. I want to them, we are music. We're not people, we're music. And I don't want to put a barrier between us and the music. So they did. They watched out. They didn't put the cordons down. And we were touched, we were fondled, we were talked to for the next 2 hours. And they were so involved in what was going on and so loving of what was going on. I've never, we weren't that good, but you know, it was something I will never forget. And if I hadn't suggested that those are my boundaries in that occasion, never would have experienced that. So boundaries are kind of a weird thing, but it boils down to, are you clear? Are you self-clear about what's going on?
Yeah.
Long story long.
No, that was a good example. Absolutely. There's different, I guess, levels of boundaries. I mean, something like the first one that you described, that's a clear boundary. Like I would have no problem in a situation like that being firm, being clear. I'm not, I know where this is going. I'm not going to be involved in this and leaving. And then, there's others that are a little more vague. So I for myself personally, the clear boundaries I have no problem with. It's those little vague ones where I'm like, how do I handle this? Just looking through the chat here real quick. So I guess the other question that I like to pose is, how do you say no with love and confidence? That was one of the questions that came up. Does anybody have any tips on that one? I see in the chat, Gloria wrote, it's easier since I'm a senior. And yeah, I agree. The older I get, the easier they become. But, I still struggle.
Well, I like the suggestion. I'm not comfortable with that, whoever wrote that in the chat. And I think I did say I feel uncomfortable when we talk about money. And I said, please. I said, thank you. Honestly, I don't think I was mean. And I really think you don't sound mean if you say please and thank you, and I'm not comfortable. So that's the nicest way, I think. But you just never know what you're going to get. And I work on my throat chakra. I think everybody, if they're in that sort of situation, when they meditate, if they could do a throat chakra meditation, there are many good ones
Great
by
suggestion.
timer, and it sort of clears the space, the energy, because sometimes you literally get stuck in your throat, something you want to say, and you can't, or you don't know how to say it, and you don't want that lingering in your body. There's probably really good EFT tapping for that as well. But I love the throat chakra meditations, and sometimes I play what's his name's music with all the different bowls for different chakras.
Is it Sonic Yogi?
Sonic Yogi, yes. I love his separate chakra meditations.
Yes. Yeah, that's a great suggestion. I know for me, I've had that experience so many times where I feel like something's just stuck in my throat, especially when I'm speaking with my siblings. They a lot of family dynamics, but they have a tendency to get into this spiral where they're speaking negatively of our mom. And I've said a couple of times, I'm not comfortable in this conversation, but it seems like I'm constantly being brought back there where we're talking about something else and they'll throw in a comment and I'm like, I'm out of this conversation. I'm not engaging in this.
I have a question here. Can I ask a question?
Please.
Um, is there a problem with being uncomfortable?
In general, or
Yeah,
Not really, I guess.
yeah.
Yeah.
Sometimes we're uncomfortable because something's triggering. And then sometimes we're uncomfortable because we're about to break through.
good point.
And, I think in our kind of new agey culture, there's this idea that like we should never be triggered. We should never be uncomfortable. But sometimes being triggered and being uncomfortable is how we actually rouse the energy to break through into a new level of understanding. And, I think nowadays we're so kind of in our collective communication, we're like walking on eggshells around each other all the time because you don't want to make anybody uncomfortable. But,
Mm-hmm.
you know, it's okay. It's okay. I mean, it's okay. You can take care of, you know how to take care of yourself when you're uncomfortable. And is it really the other person who's making you uncomfortable? I mean, yeah, okay. Somebody might be misbehaving and that's triggering something for you, but still that's like, if that's if I'm getting triggered by somebody's way of being, that's on me.
Totally. I'm so glad you said that. that gives me a whole new perspective about what happened to me. I love it.
Oh, how so? How so?
Well, because now I realize my discomfort wasn't I was putting it on her. I kind of get that now, and it is okay to be uncomfortable. I totally agree with you. And I love that people are in our lives to trigger us to find out what we need to work on, and triggers are good. So I kind of, maybe I was the one that overreacted to it, but it just seemed like she was always telling me what this costs, what that costs, and she's kind of a multimillionaires, and I have $500 in the bank, and I hated hearing her poor me stories, and that's why I was like, but you know what, that was me, that was on me. You're right. It's
Yeah.
like I had the issue with the money, not her. And then so she hung up on me, and that was it. But I've tried to, reach out. But what do you guys think I should do? Should I just try and apologize again? And
Well, is it okay if I just share an observation? Like, so much energy just came back to you from acknowledging, like, oh, it's me,
yeah,
and that's where you get your power back
right.
Yeah,
rather
Mary.
than, oh,
It's
go ahead.
true.
No, go ahead. I was gonna say Mary Pat wrote, maybe we should get comfortable with being uncomfortable. And I was thinking the same thing as you were talking, Marcel. I was like, I need to get comfortable with being uncomfortable.
Well, Abraham Maslow in the hierarchy of needs, he apparently later on, after he created that whole hierarchy, he boiled them down to two needs, which is the need for comfort and the need for growth.
Mm.
All that whole hierarchy comes down to comfort versus growth. And we can't have both at the same time.
That's
If
the
we're
whole
going to,
point of the cold plunging fad.
yeah, I'm a big fan of cold plunging. I love it.
Because the whole point of that is to be just have yourself in discomfort, and a part of that.
And then you feel fantastic afterwards.
Yeah, Jay just wrote in the chat, I can't imagine a chick breaking from an egg is comfortable or a butterfly emerging from a chrysalis. But from that discomfort, growth happens. Absolutely.
Mm.
Love that. Robert says, if we decide that we let others push our buttons, we gain freedom from victimhood. That's true too. I'm always saying that I'm not a fan of people who play the victim, and that's something great to remember.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Wow, so many wise old souls here today.
Right? Zia just wrote it. It's worth mentioning that you're in an abusive situation. It's high risk to openly demand boundaries. That's a good point. And what to do instead? What does anybody have ideas? Any suggestions on that one? Because that's important as well to remember.
I was actually going to bring up divorce as, one of the hardest boundaries I think to hold. Um, so for me, that was when I was 39, when our divorce was final. And I think you learn boundaries in stages. So perhaps the first boundary is we can't be in the same home. We need to have two separate places. But then there's the boundaries with children and how you manage schedules. And, it's like as we move through it, we're learning different ways to navigate it. But what I wanted to say, which goes back to what you were sharing, Marcella, which I loved, is I think often the boundaries that we're establishing are perhaps to get us into whatever the next phase of the journey will be. So for me with the divorce, like that actually carried me into energy work and meditation and leaving my corporate job eventually to start my own business. I think if I'd stayed in that comfortable place, even though I didn't love the marriage, like if I had stayed in a place that was familiar and known, it wouldn't have forced me to learn new skills, to stretch, outside of what I knew before. So I think all of it is carrying us. I like to describe it as the soul is carrying us into whatever the next phase of evolution is here in the human journey. And from our human side, it doesn't make sense. It doesn't seem like perhaps a comfortable thing or a happy thing to do. But from the soul, it's like, oh my God, the growth and the compassion. The woman I am now at 54, if I could talk to that young me at 39 and say, oh my God, hang in there, it's going to be okay. And you're going to learn this, and you're going to hold a boundary, and you'll screw it up at the beginning, but eventually you'll get better at it. And we keep evolving, and we don't always know in the moment where we're going. But that would be my encouragement if anyone is in that same position. Maybe your marriage isn't abusive. Mine was not abusive. Maybe it's just, you're not growing, you're stuck. But that courage to change is hard. So, yeah, big love.
No, that's so true. Um, I sort of see my boundaries as circles around me, as rings, and it's really difficult when someone moves to a different ring within that, around your boundary, your energy setup. And there will be times when people are coming, you allow people into a closer circle, I do. And then other times where it's no, it's pushback again. And it's difficult to find it challenging to do it again with that kindness and compassion and not run and hide when you really feel those boundaries that they're overstepping them. It's yeah, like a wall that comes up rather than just a ring.
I was listening to a podcast earlier today, and it's interesting that topic did come up. This person said she was in an abusive relationship, and she was talking about boundaries. And she said what she did was to not push those boundaries while she was there, but the whole time she was formulating her plan to get out of this situation, which is what she did eventually. And a couple of people have mentioned it in the chat as well. If you're in a situation like that, definitely find support, because that's a little more volatile when you're dealing with somebody where enforcing your boundaries could become abusive for you. So yeah, I'm not advocating, get in their face and tell them to shut up and back off.
Can I add something to that, though? I've been on the other side where, I know someone in an abusive relationship who isn't willing to make the change yet. And I think sometimes we want to save or fix someone else's reality or make it different than what they're currently experiencing because we want them safe, we want them protected. You can't make someone's life different than what they're choosing to allow it to be at that time. And so, I think supporting them behind the scenes, but not making them feel like they're wrong because they're not doing what you want them to do, is also an important boundary to name. Like, we can't make someone do something that they're not ready for as much as we want that for them. And sometimes I see that side of it happening. So just adding that into the conversation.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That makes me think about a friend of mine whose behavior is always late. Like she's just always half an hour late from everything. And it's a passive aggressive thing, I think, and maybe a way to get attention, but it's chronic condition of hers. And I just accept it now that that's just a part of who she is. Because I know if I said anything, I'd probably be shut down again. But it's kind of insulting when someone is constantly pushing you. I mean, it's kind of disrespectful. I would never be that
Very.
late. Just something I would never do. I'm actually usually early to everything. So that's why I find it really difficult, probably. I don't know. Does anyone have any advice about friends like that? Because I'm sure I'm not the only one.
Yeah, without a doubt. And Zia says another thing that comes to mind is when people can't enforce boundaries or they don't leave. Things like disassociation, overcompensating, or undercompensating. Yeah. Marjorie writes, I am usually late, but it's not intended, just problems with time management. Marjorie, you got to work on that.
No, that's a good point, Marjorie. That's good. Yeah, I know. It's not always something you take personally. I know.
Can I speak to that about the lateness and the boundaries?
Yes, please.
I have a friend who was chronically late and wouldn't call, wouldn't tell me I'm late. would just be late. And, it's nerve-wracking to sit there waiting, you're not sure, et cetera, et cetera. So what I said to him was, if I don't hear from you and you're not here in like within 15 minutes, I'm just going to consider that this is canceled and I'm just going to go do my thing. And one day I did, it was like, okay, 15 minutes, I'm done. A few minutes later he came down and I was like, I'm done. No, I'm going, I'm gone, see you. And it takes some chutzpah, to hold the line, but he's on time now.
Yeah.
Ah.
Yeah. Like, I'll wait 15 minutes, I'll give it a grace period, and then I'm done. I'm not going to hang around. So I don't know. So I
Yeah.
guess what I would say is how I got to that was, what am I willing to tolerate? Like, where is my boundary? What am I willing to tolerate? And that was it. So find your tolerance and then just communicate it. And he's not 100% on time now, but his behavior has significantly improved. So yeah, for whatever that's worth.
Yeah, it's funny that you mentioned that. I have a sister who will do that. If you're late, she leaves, and because of it, most people who
Yeah, I
engage with
do.
her are not late.
I mean, I communicated with clients, like I just say in my contracts, like, if you're more than 10 minutes, I'll wait for you for 10 minutes. If you're not here in 10 minutes, it's a forfeited session. And people show up.
Mm.
Yeah, that's fair enough. Bex writes, I've realized recently many of the people in my life are neurodivergent and their behavior makes sense. I try not to take it personally because it's just their brain. Now, Bex, I'm going to challenge you on that one because I find, and I'm not saying that it's not a reason, but I find people make a lot of excuses for their behavior, and I have a hard time letting things go because they're telling me they're neurodivergent or whatever the reason is. How do the rest of you feel about that?
Well, I mean, I have to say, if that kind of behavior, and I spent, I don't know, decades in the corporate world, and if that kind of behavior was okay, um, I don't even know how any company would get anywhere. If I were to call a meeting at 11 o'clock in the morning and nobody bothered to show up until 11:30 because whatever, they'd all be fired.
Right.
That's not how life works. And for those outside of that space, to think that life should be any different is just really oftentimes really kind of a puzzlement to me. It's just common courtesy.
I agree. And I know in any job I've ever been in, they wouldn't tolerate that. They wouldn't care if I said, "Hey, I'm neurodivergent," and this, find a way to work. It's in my mind, it's like if you have a disability and you're at this job, you're finding other ways to do it. So, I mean, I have nephews with ADHD and they have lists and they have alarms and, they find ways to cope to make it work. So I agree.
And I like Bex's idea is to tell the person half an hour early, like if the
Yeah.
party starts at 6:30, tell her it starts at 6. And I have done that. It works,
Yes.
Bex, it helps.
I've done that with friends too that I know are chronically late. I just give them a half hour earlier at the time. What time is everyone going to be there? I know they're coming at 6, 5:30.
That can backfire. They can turn up early.
Robert writes, it's cultural to some degree, Brazilians and Vietnamese to schedule events with an arrival time before the expected event. So there you go. We can do that too.
I didn't know that.
And Zia writes, my biggest regret is how teenagers behave of being late with the boundary issue. Turns out they were autistic. Okay. I meet the person where they are. Sure, of course. It's a reason, Bex writes, it's a reason for me not to get so upset. Yeah, of course, Bex. Yeah. And that goes back to that, don't take things personally. And Firefly says, also, we can all work to create societies and systems that are not geared towards neurotypical people either. How does everyone feel about that one? That was an interesting point there, Firefly.
What was it again?
We can all work to create societies and systems that are not geared towards neurotypical people either.
What exactly would that entail?
I was going to say, I'm not sure what that entails.
Mhm.
Yeah,
We're kind of moving towards that anyway. People
Mm.
remotely from home, coming and going, and people making their own routine schedule when it comes to work. I think it's moving towards that anyway.
I love what Irene wrote, more support groups.
Yes.
And Zia writes, boundaries are you be what I want you to be, not let me find what you need to be supported here. Okay. And Firefly says, some cultures have more flexibility that accommodate differences more readily. Yeah, that's a good point too. Acceptance of oneness. Yeah, good points.
I think as far as that Fireflies about creating the society that's more neurodivergent, I think we almost, as Kathy says, I think we're doing it. I think as and it's all happening quite organically because it appears that there are more neurodivergent people being discovered every day. And I'm saying that completely wrong, but
I know what you mean
arising
though.
every
Yeah.
day. And but I also think more flexibility is coming into the world every day as well. But
Absolutely.
sometimes I think we're almost too global and we've forgotten to be in our own space. I think this that we know what's happening on the other side of the world, but we don't know what's happening in the room that we're in
Yes.
is something that concerns me.
You know, that's interesting because, and I understand completely what you're saying. You could also argue the opposite almost. And I had an older brother who some years ago now passed from leukemia, and he and his wife had a company which was dedicated here in the States to cross-cultural education and understanding from someone operating in the business corporate space what the cultural norms were of other countries and what the expectations were in other countries, and as a means to better communicating and better doing business with them. And they were extremely successful in a very novel approach. And uh, I think that as an American, you know, I think we're we're cultural centric in many ways, and sometimes we don't even care. You know, if it's the norm in Vietnam to show up half an hour late for a meeting that's called for 10 o'clock, that's okay. Our norms may be significantly different than that, and so you know, part of it is understanding and acceptance, and you know, the effort needs to be dedicated then to understand each of the parties and what the expectations are and what they should be, and then you can move forward. Otherwise, you have an absolutist kind of approach, which doesn't typically seem to solve much.
Yeah, I love that. I've always worked,
I
or the past 15 or so years, I've worked in hospital or medical settings. And one of the things that they make us do is cultural awareness training for that reason, because what may seem odd to me may be normal to someone else. Or, um, recently I came to the conclusion that sometimes when interacting with people, even on Insight Timer, I'm like, wow, that was kind of rude. But then it's like, maybe what's rude to me is normal to them. So I don't take those things personally anymore like I used to. So that's a great point.
I was talking about this in a session yesterday, and I said I think probably the only absolutely universal gesture is a smile. It's the only one that every culture would recognize.
That's a good point.
I think this is the beauty of these apps, though, and the way that technology is headed. A lot of what I cover in my work is astrology, and as many of you probably know, Pluto's moved into Aquarius. So where we're headed is going to be more apps. I know we're on the fence still about artificial intelligence, but the apps bring us together into platforms just like this. Imagine before Zoom. Do you remember what was life before we all were able to get on Zoom calls? And now it's just how we pop on and connect. You're doing Zoom and an app. Like I mean, I know Zoom is an app, but you're doing Zoom and Insight Timer at the same time and bringing these communities together. And I just think we're headed to more of that, which is going to dissolve more of the, I guess, boundaries that are culturally different or not understanding. Yeah, I just think it's fascinating where we're going to go. So that was all.
I
Adding
love
that in.
that. I
Great,
love that. That's a great
great
point.
point.
Irene writes, someone told me to smile the other day and I felt really slighted. Here I am doing my laundry. Mind your own business. Thank you, Irene. That gave me a chuckle. All right, well, we're almost an hour, and I just want to see if anyone on the panel has anything that they want to add before we start wrapping it up.
You know,
Speak now,
I'll just chime in here.
please.
The whole question of boundaries brings up the whole notion of structure and structure in our lives. And I wonder, just take what you like and leave the rest of this, but in terms of a society that accommodates more neurodivergent, I'm not that familiar with neurodivergent issues, so forgive me for my ignorance, but what I know is, like, for example, children will resist transitions. Okay, it's 8 o'clock. It's time for you to brush your teeth and start getting ready for, no, I don't want to brush my teeth. I want to stay. So, there's a resistance to that. There's almost like an innate resistance to that kind of structure. But ultimately, from the point of view of parenting, having that structure in place is part of what creates safety for a child. Because if anything goes, then the child gets angry and rebellious, and I don't know, there's wisdom to structure. If you're late and you're chronically late, you don't get to keep the job. Like, we have to be able to depend on you to show up to work on time. So there's ways that structure can become oppressive, but I think that for myself, if I think about discipline and structure, I think about ultimately it comes from devotion. I do it because I know it's good for me, rather than like some arbitrary system is imposing it on me and I'm this oppressed person. I don't know. Maybe I'm getting into fishy territory here, but I just wanted to give a shout for structure. I think there's some merit to it. I'll leave it there. I'll
No,
leave
I
it
think
there
that's
before I stick my foot in my mouth
no,
and we're here.
no. I think that's a great point.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, no, I mean, for me, it goes back to the old question, does form dictate content, or does content dictate form? And, it depends on our approach to that question as to how we lead our lives and how we relate with others. Because if we say, form, maybe meaning structure, dictates content, I'm not sure sometimes how authentic that can be, rather than content dictating form. And in certain environments, corporate being one, that's a real issue. And the issue is, how open are you to establishing and administering borders that are structurally meaningful to your organization and the people inside of it? It's an open question.
That's a great point. Bex wrote, boundaries require consequences. Structure is a good way to put it. especially when you need to be consistent. And that's so true. You know, the example you used, Marcella, with the children, you know, that's a great way of looking at it. I never thought about that, but that's a good point. And Patry writes, as a teacher, I had to make adaptations for students that are neurodivergent. Most of these involve not doing the work and disturbing others from their learning. Interesting.
Mm.
I'd like to add one more piece into this. So I know we're talking a lot about work and global cultures, but I think when we go to like deep interpersonal relationships and holding a boundary, so like you were saying with your sister, Catherine, I think maybe the older we get, the more compassion, hopefully, we learn to tap into. So when we're younger, we want to hold the boundary really tight, and we get, this is a general statement, we get super angry, we get triggered, we say the thing, we get mad, and then we're trying to figure out how to come back from that later. But I have found, and I know it's a statement many other people say, is, you know, the open heart is the strongest heart. The heart that isn't afraid that it's always going to be hurt, or that isn't trying to push someone away, but is compassionately holding open space for getting to know someone or getting to understand their perspective. I just feel like that is a way we can start to navigate this life that I don't see modeled enough. I think people are very quick to cancel someone. You're out of my world. And this isn't about you, Catherine. I'm just making a general statement. You're out of my world. You're not part of my reality anymore. You don't exist. Well, really? Maybe there's a way we could take some space, have a breath, and then come back and with more compassion, with listening to someone else's perspective, maybe we could bridge some of that and bring the relationship back into alignment in a new way, stronger way, but not from a closed heart, from keeping the heart open. So, yeah, I know. It's tender work. I mean, the fact that you shared about your sister, like, that's brave. It's hard to bring
Yeah.
stuff like that up.
So much today from all of you. It's fantastic. I'm so glad I did.
Yeah.
I'm
Yes.
not sure if I would, but I'm glad I did. And I think that's a great way to finish, is just having compassion and an open heart. It's always the answer, right?
Beautifully said. Yeah.
I think in some respects, remembering that from what Marcella said, that with the uncomfortable, that and remembering that our boundaries aren't the same as another person's boundaries,
Mm.
particularly when we're talking the interpersonal ones, that what I consider a boundary, that other person doesn't necessarily, and maybe, yeah, I just have to sit on a stick for a while and be uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Stone in my shoe.
Yeah, I loved that you said that, Marcel, about being comfortable with being uncomfortable. It's something I'm definitely going to think about because I know, you know, and the triggers too. You made a great point. I know for me, a lot of my issues around boundaries are not being comfortable and
Mm.
being triggered. And I love what Catherine said that, you know, it wasn't about her sister, it was about her. And I'm right there with you, Catherine. I've got a sister like that too, so I get it. And a lot of it, I have to remember that when I interact with her. It's not about her, it's about me.
Yeah, I suddenly realized, thanks to you guys, I still have money issues. I didn't think I did. I obviously do. I'll have to listen to my abundance meditations.
I'll
All
listen to
right.
it.
Yeah, definitely. All right, so let's wrap it up. I want to go around to the teachers again. I want you to share for anybody who came late, you know, what you've got going on, any courses you want to share, any events you've got coming up. Please share with this group. I'm going to start with you, Marcella.
Yeah, well, apropos of this theme of boundaries, I've got a new free track. I use my body to say no, and
Listen.
yeah, coming up with that. And then a course that's coming out on Saturday, a very short course called The Weight of Protection. Yeah, using body weight for protection. And then, if you come follow me, I am live most Saturday mornings, and I'm starting to add Thursday mornings as well. Yeah, so thanks.
Excellent. Thank you. Vivian.
Thanks again for creating this and for having us all here. I do a lot with astrology, so I have a new moon and a full moon meditation every month, and I do new moon intention settings. I follow what's going on with the astrological cycles. So next week, if you don't know, we have the Lionsgate portal opening. It's a really beautiful time for manifesting. So I have 8 lives over that portal of 2
Ooh,
weeks,
I'll
which
be
will be a
there.
lot of fun. You'll be there. Yeah, it's a lot of fun to tap into that energy. I probably do 1 live a week. My focus really is on building community. I'm a double Aquarius, and Pluto in Aquarius is all about being uniquely ourselves and finding the right people and bringing them together. So we have a really beautiful group growing there, and I'm having a lot of fun. I've been on about probably a year and a half in the platform. I will have a retreat in November that I haven't published yet, but I will be doing that. No courses, but on the way. Yeah. So thank
Excellent.
you again for having us.
Oh, you're welcome. Anne.
I can just hear my dog revving up in the
Oh,
background. Oops.
yeah, I keep muting
So
every time
maybe
mine starts. Oh, I think you muted yourself.
oh, okay. I don't have any courses at all. I do regular lives, taking meditations, having chats. It's and then I've got on a regular on a Monday evening or Tuesday morning, my time is a space for calm, where we're sort of working towards inner peace, looking at different topics. It's a very casual chat and then always a meditation. It's a very relaxed time. Thank you
Catherine.
very much for
Oh,
having me.
you're very welcome. It's my pleasure. And Catherine.
Oh, yeah, well, I've been on the platform 9 years now.
Wow.
Yeah, so 2016, I think I was asked to join. And then the COVID was fantastic because then I got this global community that absolutely loved doing the lives. But lately, they haven't been publishing my lives. It hasn't been showing up. And I wrote to them and they said people have to go to me, teacher, then check to see what I'm doing every day. And that's an awful lot to ask. I've lost a lot of my community. I don't know where they are. I miss them all. But anyways, I'm really glad you asked me. Now I can tell some people that I do have a class tomorrow, 10 a.m., self-love, healthy weight affirmations. And then Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday next week, I'll do lives. And I have a retreat in Costa Rica for New Year's. And I would
Wow.
love Insight Timer in real life. I would love to have a group of people from IT. That'd be so great.
That would be awesome. Awesome. And James.
Well, first, Vivian, thanks for saying what you've said. And I'm a quadruple cancer. So my and I still survive in spite of myself. But one of the things which has been since my beginnings on the platform, which is about 10 years ago, is how I can best be in support of the community and their either lack of sleep or in support of their holistic practices. And in large part, my offerings to the platform are free. Um, I try and keep up with new offerings, some of which I think are better than others, as we all probably should. But it's been a very engaged, interactive community, and something I've been delighted to be a part of. So I hope it goes on for many, many years to come. And thank you all for sharing your wisdom today.
Yeah, thank you. This was awesome. And I want to point out that coming up August 2nd, we're doing a peaceful pause for those of you who'd not been to one of those before. It's an amazing event. We already had 40 teachers signed up. I think the last one we had almost 40 teachers, all on camera, even though they look really tiny. Dakota is going to do an opening meditation, and she does really beautiful work with her meditations. A lot of the teachers who are here with us now are going to be there. And if you're not and you can be, please let me know because the more the merrier. I love doing things like that. And I love what we do here. You know, as most of you know, I'm not a meditation teacher. I'm a tech junkie, and I was a user of Insight Timer for many years and loved getting to know all these teachers and was like, wow, how can we bring them all together? So I kind of threw myself into this for that purpose. I don't do any lives by myself. I love doing lives with other people, and I figured out how to use the software to do that. It took me a while, but I do love, like James said, I love the community that we have here. So I really enjoy doing these, and I love being here with all these teachers. I want to thank all of you for your time tonight. This was awesome, very helpful for me. Marcel, I'm definitely going to be attending more of your lives because, like Catherine, that light bulb was going off while you were talking this whole time for me. And this was one of the reasons I picked this topic, is because it's one I struggle with. Um, Rachel, I'm sure at some point we will, but if you follow me and check my link in my teacher's profile, you will be able to catch the entire replay there because I always upload all the replays. And again, thank you all. Thank you everyone in the community for everything that you shared, and all the teachers here for everything that you shared. This was extremely helpful for me, and I hope it was for everyone else. And we will catch you all soon. And remember that with the replay, I will also upload links to all the teachers who are here so that you can follow them as well. And with that, we are going to say good night. Thank you, everyone, or good day, whatever. I forget that, we're not all on my time zone.
Mhm.
So have a great day, and we will chat with all of you soon. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Violet. Thank you, everybody.
I
You're
love
welcome.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
it.